things I want to point out first and foremost is that it's interesting that they talk about distractions. About 50 House and Senate Republicans are upstairs in an economic briefing on the nearly $9 billion budget deficit that we inherited from their reckless fiscal policies. So it's very interesting that they want to talk about recklessness when we're upstairs working hard to rectify their reckless fiscal policies that have left us in this budget situation. It's also very interesting, there was a lot of talk of bipartisanship. It's interesting that leading this press conference is a woman who is well recognized as a partisan attack dog, who's more interested in attacking often in personal ways than having serious deliberative discussions. So I found that to be very, very interesting as well. However, on the substance, I sent Representative Norelli an email this morning inviting her to weekly meetings with myself to discuss any issues that she may have. So we are reaching out, and we are always committed to working in a bipartisan manner that's in the best interest of the people of New Hampshire. With regard to distractions and guns and things of that, former Speaker Norelli well knows that the first order of business that the House must take up is rules. We cannot act upon legislation, including the budget, until we have a set of rules in place and a process by which we can act upon this legislation. The gun policy was part of the rules discussion. You all well know that there were several rule changes that were made that had a direct effect on how we conduct ourselves with the budget process. For example, no longer are we going to have the kind of policies that were implemented by Senator D'Alessandro, in which at midnight we're going to start implementing LLC taxes, campground taxes that have never been the subject of a public hearing. Those were part of the rules changes that we put in place. We also said that no longer are we going to allow legislation to be given a favorable recommendation when it gives our departments and agencies broad rulemaking authority. So this way there, the legislative process is kept intact and with integrity. So those are the issues that are really at play here, and none of that. But as I said, with regard to Representative Brunel, the statement is the extent of my comment.
It seemed like the relationship, which was bad last week, is just gone bad to even worse now for the two parties here. Regardless of the issues that you just addressed, even Senator D'Alessandro, obviously as a Democrat, said he's never seen a situation like this. It seems like getting off on the wrong foot.
Well, as I said, I'm committed to working with the Democrats every opportunity we can in the best interest of the people of New Hampshire. I had a great conversation last week with Governor Lynch, discussing where we need to go from here with regard to our budget, with regard to education reforms, with regard to pension reforms. So, it is what it is, Josh. But again, I'm committed to working with the other party whenever it's in the best interest of the people of New Hampshire.
As was mentioned, words like imbecilic, sophomore, sleazy, juvenile, they're all being attached to this effort.
Sure.
You don't want to back away from this stance at all? You think this is an appropriate thing to move forward on? You see these conservative voices in the state that found fault with it?
Well, again, obviously with regard to process, many of the issues raised at the conference today are going to be issues that you'll have to discuss with the Speaker. As I've said there, that this is an issue that needs to be looked at. For no other reason than it will allow us to be able to have an interpretation of this particular article of the Constitution. It could potentially lead to amendments to be discussed to the rules of ethics so that we never have this kind of a situation happen again.
Well, was there any discussion internally among leaders about this reading of the Constitution that set this on its path? Because people who are seasoned constitutional lawyers from across the spectrum seem to agree that this is at best novel and at worst just, a woeful misreading.
That's a discussion that will take place in the committee.
Did you discuss this with House Counsel prior to?
I'm sorry?
Did you discuss it? Did you discuss it with House Counsel? I mean, what sort of legal advice went into this?
Again, I want to direct you to the statement, but well, the fact of the matter is that a member of our caucus came to us with a very, very serious concern, and our office supported looking into it because it is very, very serious. And as I've said, if nothing else comes out of this, I hope that there's an understanding and a better handle on what is and is not a potential violation of that constitutional provision. And we're going to have that discussion in the committee with regard to what it means.
Are there any other representatives representatives or senators for that matter that you know of that are under investigation because of conservation?
I'm not aware of it.
So I'm just trying to figure out, this has obviously caused huge distraction, tremendous amount of negative energy, disruption. Before taking the step up on Wednesday, did you at least review the allegation with the representatives, Rizzo, and the House Counsel to sort of say, do we have a leg to stand on, should we move forward with this, or is it just
The matter was brought to my attention by the member. A discussion took place between the member and the speaker, and a decision was made to raise the issue. But again, gentlemen, I want to refocus our attention here. We have Ken Weiler, the Finance Committee Chairman, who has taken now nearly 40 minutes away from the budget discussions to have to come down here.
We didn't have to
discuss
come
this.
down.
Well, but you know something? They've continued to play into this narrative that Republicans are distracted. And the fact of the matter is that we're not distracted. We've had economic briefings the past 2 weeks to get a better handle on where the budget is. They're upstairs today trying to get a better handle on how best to address this nearly $900 million deficit that the Legislative Budget Office has said exists. That's where the focus is.
Our attention is still on the budget. It has never been more clear by both the Speaker and the Majority Leader that this is the most important issue before us. It's the first time that it hasn't just been shuttled away to the Finance Committee and said, take care of it. We're working closely with Ways and Means so that we have the revenue estimates before we do the budget, not after. Also, I am involving every committee in this State House. I've assigned liaisons, and I'll release the list tomorrow. There's liaisons to every one of the other committees to go and deliver the message, to control spending and find savings. And that's the message that each liaison will deliver to each and every committee. And all of them are involved, because I've never heard so many people who included in their speeches when they were running for office that we've got to do something to balance the budget. When a couple of years ago, 37 states reduced their budgets, we increased ours by double digits. Now this has helped dig this hole that we've got to dig our way out of. So that's where we've got full attention on that, but there's a lot of prep work that goes into before we formulate a budget. And that's what we're working on diligently now. This is, as Senator D'Alessandro said, it's a distraction. It's a shock to find yourself in minority after having been, you think, firmly ensconced as a majority. So every little issue is something you're looking for a chink in the armor of the other side. I remember experiencing the shock of finding myself in a minority after many years up here, and it's quite distressing. So maybe there's mental health issues here at stake. I don't know.
What do you mean by mental health issues?
It causes a lot of stirring up if you suddenly find yourself in the minority, and you go after every little issue that is minor to try to make it a major issue. And that's my impression of what's happening here.
Those are just procedurally. I mean, at the first hearing, we're likely to establish rules, and then on to Thursday.
The process by which this will take place will be released very, very shortly, and it will be conducted with the utmost fairness.
So what happens tomorrow on this whole front?
Tomorrow, the committee is going to organize itself, as every committee does, and will acknowledge that they've received a petition. And beyond that, you'd have to speak with the Speaker and Representative Mirsky.
I think I don't want to speak out of turn, but I think that the committee will be releasing plans on how that should go tomorrow.
Today?
I believe so.
So they'll tell us today what they're going to do tomorrow.
TJ, there are, after what happened over the weekend, there are some who say, you know, as Josh asked, this speaks to why legislators should be able to be armed. And then there are others that say adopting a rule like this speaks to people with real mental health issues and says this is a place to come in here and make mischief and perhaps kill or wound someone.
Again, I want to be very, very clear that the guns issue is not a distraction. It's part of the rules that have to be put in place before we can deal with legislation. So let's be very, very clear about that. First of all, there's a disagreement, and that's okay to have disagreement. Republicans believe that legislators and others should be able to have the means to protect themselves in the State House and here in the LOB and in the Upham Walker House. The other side simply disagrees. But I want to stress that when tragedies have taken place, and history is tormented with tragedies, Columbine High School, Virginia Tech are two that stick out in my mind. Those places were gun-free zones. And armed individuals who intended to do people harm, it was of no consequence to them that they were gun-free zones. And the people inside did not have the means to defend themselves. That's the kind of situation we're looking to avoid here. Thank you very much. Yep, I'm sorry.